Hello again and welcome back to South Bristol Chess Club 2013. It's the concluding qualifying game now as we go to the last game in Group B, Round 3. And what a game this should be. We have Tyson Mordue with 2 wins from 2 games taking on Richard Garrett with 2 wins from 2 games for qualification from Group B to go on to face Dr. Ian Bourne in the South Bristol Chess Club final. Neither of these 2 players are short on confidence or ability, and this is going to be one hell of a match. Mordue is the group favourite and does have the white pieces, so you would slightly fancy him more, but Garrett is a very slippery customer who is never defeated until the very end. Can he do it? Let's find out. Hold on to your seats because this is likely to be a magnificent game. Let's go and have a look.
So this is effectively a club championship semi-final against Richard Garrett because we both got 2 out of 2, so the winner goes forward to the final. I'm interested to see what he's going to play because he's clearly been preparing this, but what has he been preparing? French defence? Some sort of Sicilian? Is he going to try a knight off? Well, my first move is obvious, 1 e4.
Right, here we go again. I've got to play Tyson Mordue, strongest player in the club. I know he loves the Sicilian, and he's opened with his favourite opening, which is pawn to e4. I've done a little bit of preparation, not much, but I'm going to have a go. So let's play the Sicilian, c5.
He's played c5, so we're heading for a Sicilian to knight f3.
He's played knight to f3, so we'll carry on. Knight to c6.
Knight c6, so it's not going to be a dragon or a knight off or something. Wonder what he's got in mind, perhaps a Sveshnikov. 3 d4.
He's played d4, we're going down the main lines at the moment. So pawn takes pawn.
Obvious recapture, knight takes d4.
Yeah, knight takes pawn. Right, let's try this. I've never done this opening before, so let's go for it. e5.
e5, Lowenthal. Now that is an extremely rare bird, and I wouldn't have expected it from Richard. But I do know something about this, so I'm quite happy about this. The normal move here is knight b5.
Yeah, he's played knight to b5. So far we're going down the lines I was hoping for. a6.
He's played down a6, so he's going down the full main line of the Lowenthal. I've got to play knight d6 check, it's the only try for an advantage.
Knight to d6, now I just exchange and bring my queen out to f6, hoping to either exchange queens and gain a bit of time with my knights, or I'll make it a little bit awkward on his e-pawn. Right. Bishop takes knight.
Bishop takes d6, just a normal move, and I've got to replay the recapture, queen takes d6.
Yeah, queen takes bishop, forced. Queen to f6.
Queen f6, again the normal move, and the theoretical continuation here, although it looks slightly odd, is queen d1.
Well, that's good. He's played his queen back to d1. That's probably one of the best moves that you're supposed to move your queen back to. So I'm just going to carry on. Queen to g6, hitting the e-pawn.
Queen g6 is the normal move, and knight c3 is the normal response. I'm expecting d5 in reply.
Well, I'm going to carry on with what I was hoping to play anyway, which is a bit of a sort of pawn sacrifice, but it gives me a lot of counterplay. And I'll play, and I'm just going to move my king knight out to e7.
Bob Radford. Why would Richard Garrett employ this somewhat antiquated and not very modern version of the Sicilian defence? What's he trying to do here?
Well, I should imagine Garrett understands that Mordue has a very good knowledge of the Sicilian from both sides, white and black, and he's really trying to use a more obscure, out-of-date opening to try and shorten the odds, as it were, with his chances, in the hope that he might catch Tyson out somewhere.
He's played knight g e7 instead of d5, and I can't remember what the analysis is. Oh dear. Bishop e3 maybe? Maybe knight d5? Perhaps g3? Was h4 a move? Oh dear. I really can't remember what to do. Okay, let's try fianchetting the king's bishop and getting extra control on d5. G3.
Well, that's an unusual move. He's just played g3. I was hoping for bishop to e3, and then I had quite an exciting line to go. But I'm still going to go down the same line. I'm going to play d4.
And g3 really wasn't a very good move because I just actually added to the strength of d5. Obviously, if knight takes d5, queen takes e4 check, and I'm losing the rook in the corner. Well done. Here I am already sitting with the worst position, and it's only move 10. Richard has actually outplayed me in the opening. Okay, don't panic. I haven't made any serious mistakes, although I've clearly gone away from the theory. g3 was played to put the bishop on g2. You can play d4, but then I can put my knight back on e2, and I can try nibbling at the centre with c3 later on. The key thing to remember here is I've got the two bishops, so if the position opens up, it should favour me. But he's going to be fairly happy with the result in the opening, but I've got nothing to really think about here. It's got to be bishop g2.
That's a shame. He's played bishop to knight 2. It would have been interesting if he'd taken on d5, because it's a pawn sacrifice, but I do get quite a lot of counterplay, even if he takes with the knight or the queen. If he takes with the pawn, I got knight to knight 5, threatening to take on c2. And if he tries to defend anything down there, I've then got bishop coming to f5, also putting pressure on c2. So there's a lot of pressure, but he's just ignored it and just played his bishop to g2. Thank you. Right, I'm just going to advance then. d5.
4, which I suppose is okay. I mean, he could have considered d takes e4, opening up the position, and then playing f5, but this makes more sense. I've got the bishop pair, so he wants to keep it semi-closed. So d4, knight d5 doesn't do very much, because he can just chop, move his knight, play f5, have a massive centre. So I'm going to have to go back where I intended, knight e2.
Yeah, he's moved his knight back to e2. I'm just going castle.
Castled, which is absolutely fine. Get your king out of the centre before you initiate any action there. And obviously, by the same standard, I've got to do the same thing. Castles.
Right, he's castled. I've looked for a little while at this. I thought he'd probably castle at that point. I think I should. I can play f5, which puts pressure on, but I'm worried that would open up his bishop on g2 now, so I'm not going to play it. I just want to lock the position up, so I'm going to just play f6.
Played f6, which I'm fairly happy to see, because f5 would have been a more interesting thing to try and achieve. Bishop e6 would have been interesting too, but I don't think I've got much choice here. I've got to nibble at that pawn in the centre, so I have to play c3.
Yeah, expected c3. He's putting pressure straight on my pawn there. Well, I don't want to exchange it because he just captured with the knight. I'm going to just play my rook over. Rook to d1, d8.
Which has played rook d8, which is quite interesting. If he just takes on c3, knight takes, and I'm slightly better. But now it's a question of if I just taking on d4, is he going to end up taking back with his own d pawn at some point? Admittedly, if I go c takes d4 and then he goes e takes d4, I can play knight to f4 down to d3, the ideal blockade square, and I think I'm probably okay. So it's probably more important what happens if I go pawn takes pawn, he goes knight takes, exchange knights, and then he takes. But I've got no choice about this anyway. I've got to eliminate that centre forward before he plays d3, so c takes d4.
His exchange, he's just forced exchanges now, so knight takes pawn.
Which has played knight takes d4, so I can't do anything with my knight. I've got to exchange, so knight takes d4 for white.
Yeah, he's played knight takes knight, so I'm just going to play rook takes knight.
He's played rook takes d4, which comes with some sort of relief. It means I don't have to worry about an advanced past d pawn. On the other hand, the position is looking relatively level. I can play queen b3 check and follow up with bishop e3. and I'm finally getting some sort of development in, but this is looking a little bit level. I haven't achieved very much out of the opening, and Rich is probably still fairly happy with this. Anyway, got to move me queen b3 check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I expected queen to b3 check. I'm just going to block with queen to f7.
Rich replied queen f7, and now it's the question, do I exchange queens here, or do I go bishop e3 first? If I go bishop e3 first, he can chop queens, and then maybe go rook b4. I can't do that because of bishop c5. Maybe rook d3. I'm slightly worried about these queenside pawns. I probably do better to maintain the flexibility, even though I feel bishop e3 immediately has probably got something going for it. So I'll exchange queens and then play bishop e3. So queen takes f7 check.
Oh, he's exchanged queens. I thought he might have kept those on, but he's probably trying to get an advantage down the open files. But I've got a sneaky little move coming up, I think, that you might not have seen. Right, king takes queen.
King takes f7. Carry on with bishop e3, developing with a tempo.
Bishop to e3. Expected. I'm just going to play my rook to the c file, so rook to c4.
Rook c4, that's a good move. He's threatening to come in with rook c2, so I need to put a rook on c1. Suppose I put any rook on c1, he plays bishop e6, and then I exchange. He goes, let's say rook takes rook on c4, bishop takes c4, rook c1, because I think I can leave the a2 pawn on prey, I can. If he goes bishop takes a2, I go rook c7, I'm hitting the b pawn, I'm threatening bishop c5, attacking the pinned knight, so he can play b5, I'll play bishop c5, he's got to go rook e8, then I can play a b4, he's completely tied up. He'll probably win the a pawn in due course because he can't get his bishop back around to defend it. That's got to be really good for me. So it's just a question of which rook do I want to put on c1. I think if I put the f rook on there, he's going to take anyway. Yeah, okay, rook f c1.
He's moved his king rook over to attack my rook. I expected this. I've got a couple of choices here, but I think the move he hasn't seen is me just moving the rook back to c6, which is what I'll do. Rook to c6.
Oh, he's played rook c6. That's a disappointment. Now I wish I'd played the other rook across. Well, I've got to try and get active here. I seem to be slightly stymied on the queen side, so we'd better go play on the king side. f4.
Oh, he's played pawn king bishop 4. That's sharp. That is... oh no. I don't like my position quite so much now. I wish he'd waited a move for that. I would have been alright. Well, never mind. I can't move my bishop out anyway. So bishop to e6.
Played bishop e6, which is a slight disappointment. I hope he might take on f4 there. Now I've got a big decision to make. Do I want to take on e5 and give him an isolated pawn there and maybe try and use the f-file, or do I want to try and knock him about a bit, squash him with f5? Various factors to take into account here. It's going to be a long game, and f5 is going to give me some sort of space advantage. I'm just going to have to see what comes along. I don't really think that taking on e5 is going to get me that much. I'm going to try f5 and see if I can squash him a bit.
I'm a bit surprised he's advanced there. I thought he might have been better to have swapped. Anyway, I just move my bishop back to d7.
Okay, he's gone back to d7, which is okay, so now I can play rook d1 with a tempo and that, and play rook d2 to stop him coming on c2 and double on the d file.
Yeah, typical Tyson. He's now attacking my poor little bishop. He's just played his rook to d1. I've got to move my bishop back. I don't like to defend it with the king because you just double on it and try and win it. So just move the bishop off the line. Bishop to e8.
The passive bishop e8. I'm going to play rook d2 as planned.
Yeah, he's playing rook to queen 2, preparing to double his rooks. I'm going to move my rook on one, sorry. And this is number 25.
Hang on.
Yeah, as expected, typical Tyson, he's trying to double his rooks. I'm going to play my a rook to c8.
He's gone rook 8 c8, and suddenly I'm not happy with my position anymore, because he's just going to go rook c1 regardless. and I can't actually flush that rook out immediately. And what's more, after he goes rook c1, he's going to have bishop c6, and I'm going to be stuck defending the backward e4 pawn. This isn't as good as I thought it was, but nevertheless, it's still not that. I'm not in any danger or anything. Okay, well, playing rook 1d1 is pointless if he's going to play rook c1, so I may as well centralise my king now. King f2.
King to bishop 2. Can we do that again? You surprised me a little bit there. I played king to f2. But I suppose that is just making this king strong, getting into the centre. Well, I'm still going to swap that rook on a1, because I think if I get rid of one set of rooks, I've got more chance of drawing. I don't think I'm winning anything here. I think I'm just drawing. So, rook to c1.
Okay, he's played rook c1 as expected. I've got to exchange that. Rook takes c1.
Yeah, he's played rook takes rook, so rook takes rook.
He's played rook takes c1. Now, if I need to get rid of that rook from the that particular square, I'm going to have to play rook c2. And the only way I can play rook c2 is if I've got my bishop on d3. If I don't play bishop f1 to d3 immediately, he plays bishop c6, and the bishop is just stuck on g2. So I've got to play bishop f1, bishop d3 right now.
To f1 now. Where's he going with that? I need to still keep this c4 square covered, because that's a nasty little check. I don't want that coming in. I think I'm just going to try and consolidate my position. I'm going to get my bishop into place and attack his e-pawn. So bishop to c6.
He's played bishop c6 as expected. Got to defend the e-pawn. Bishop d3 is what I intended.
Well, that's one of the ways he could have defended it. It's the only way he could have defended it properly, unless he moved his bishop back to g2. So he's moved his bishop to d3. Right, so it's my move. I've got to watch out for any little sneaky moves here that he might do to try and get a discovered attack on my rook. But the bishop's now in the way, so I think I can just I'll start attacking his pawn chain. Like g6.
He's played g6. Now that's relatively critical, because I did expect that. I'm going to reply to g4 with it, and the only question is, does he actually want to try and risk playing h5 to create an asymmetrical pawn structure? The most important piece on the board here is my dark squared bishop. If I can do something constructive with it, then I might have some good winning chances. But a few pawns are going to come off the board here. I'm going to have to be relatively careful. Anyway, not too much to think about here. I'm going to have to play g4 to support that f5 pawn. g4.
That's a shame, he's played g4, but I expected that because it's Tyson. Right, activity. I'm just going to try and break up on the queen side a little bit. Try and just give my pieces a bit of a chance to try and win something. So, h5.
He's played h5. Well, that's very interesting, because that means he is playing to win this position. Okay, well, if I play h3, he can just chop on g4, then chop on f5, and there's hardly anything happening. But if I play f takes g6, and then take on h5, I've got an outside passed h pawn, which might be useful. He's got a backward f6 pawn, which I can attack either via rook d6 or rook f2. And like I said, my dark square bishop needs something to bite on, so it would certainly like to bite on that pawn on f6. Anyway, got to exchange pawns, and it's got to be f takes g6 check.
Pawn takes pawn check. Well, I've got to take with the king, so king takes pawn.
The king takes g6, because obviously he has to recapture on h5 with the king. G takes h5 check.
He's played pawn takes pawn check again. So king takes pawn.
Okay, I've got to get rid of that rook on the second rank, so I'm going to play rook c2. Oh, I think I could have won a piece then with bishop e2 check followed by rook d7. That's irritating. I might have missed a win there.
Now he's played rook to bishop 2. Rook to king rook 1.
Oh, he's gone rook h1. Well, that's interesting, because bishop rook to c2 was virtually an offer of a draw, but he's declined to exchange the rook, so he is still playing for a win. Could have gone rook a1 instead, he still can, but I've got to do something about the defence on the h-pawn, and if I play king g2, I'm just setting myself up for things arriving on f5. What I'm going to do is play king g3, which I didn't have a couple of moves ago because I had a pawn on g3, so I think he may have mistimed rook h1 slightly, which is handy.
He's played his king to g3, that was a shame. I was hoping he'd play it to g2. That was going to move my rook away to attack one of his pawns, and that would have left his pawn pinned in the centre there with a good couple of threats. Oh well. Oh no, I can't play what I wanted to play. If I play knight to g6, he just mates me. And I also can't play my pawn to f4 because he's going to play pawn takes pawn and then drop his bishop back to e2 again and mate me again. Oh dear. I'm just going to have to move my king back to knight 3 then. King to knight 3.
He's played king g6. Not entirely sure about that, but I've got to find something to do here. Dark square bishop is activating, so let's go prod a piece. Bishop c5.
Well, he's played his bishop to bishop 5 to attack my knight. I expected this sooner or later. That bishop's covering some really good squares. Both his bishops are covering g1 and f1. Possibilities of getting forked if I try and move my king up on the h-file when he plays bishop to e2. So I've got to be really careful here. I'm just going to have to just move my knight back.
On knight g8, which is what I expected, but of course having played king g6 we then couldn't put the knight there, so some sort of progress. I need a plan here. I like to push the h-pawn, I like to put the rook on f2, put the rook on g2 even, it could be interesting. I've even got lines where I can play a rook g2, bishop g1, king h3, but like my discover check, rook to g3 and then king g2 trapping the rook. Unfortunately, he's got a lot of moves in between. I don't like the fact that when he moves his rook to a1, I've got to spend a tempo defending the pawn on a2 somehow. So I think at the moment I'll just defer things and just play b3 immediately. It also takes away a few squares from his light square bishop, so b3.
He's just played b3. I got to move quickly now because I'm running out of time, so knight to h6.
Okay, he's played knight h6, trying to activate his knight. I'm not entirely sure where it's going. It's about time I did some things myself. Rook g2 is still possible. Wish I could do something with the dark square bishop. Let's see if I can do something with this pawn instead. I'm a bit fed up just sitting there defending it with two pieces, so let's play h3. Actually, now I've played it, that isn't such a great idea because he's got bishop d7 hitting it with two pieces. But that's great, I'm going to have to play h4. Well, I may as well just could have saved a tempo by playing h4 straight away. Not very happy with this.
He's played h3, so knight to f7.
Oh, he's played knight f7 instead. Well, he's second to come knight g5, which is a really good square, so I'm going to have to go and put that pawn on h4.
That pawn is still coming up, it's gone to h4 now. So bishop to d7.
And now he's played bishop d7, threatening rook h3 check, winning the pawn, which means the only move I've got to even stop that threat is rook h2. I've got nothing else to play. Again, it's virtually a draw for because he can just exchange rooks and he's probably perfectly okay.
Played rook to h2. I probably should swap here and then try and draw the endgame. But it's really difficult, a knight and bishop against two bishops. So I better keep rook on. So rook to c1.
He's still playing for a win with rook c1, and we're both getting a bit short on time now. I'm about half a minute down here. I was actually 3 minutes down at one point, so it's not so bad. We're both having difficulty formulating plans, that's the reason why. Anyway, I need to do something with this bishop. I could play rook c2, but again, that's an offer of a draw. Bishop a3 is a possibility, then he's got nasty rook c3. Bishop e3 is strong. No, it's not, because he's still got rook c3. I need to cut out rook c3, and then maybe I can play h5 check followed by bishop d2 and get the pawn to h6. Might have chances here if I can run the h-pawn. His king's slightly exposed, but I need to get the pieces coordinated against it. Anyway, rook c3 is an annoying move, so bishop b4 will cut that out.
He's just moved his bishop back to b4. I think I've got a few problems now, I'm starting to lose, I think. So bishop to c6.
He's played bishop c6, which again just focuses back on the pawn on e4. Bishop wasn't doing anything on d7 anymore, so that's quite understandable. Bishop d2 is a move. Might go rook a1. I'm getting vaguely worried about f5 and squares opening up around my king. I think I'll take a step nearer my own pawn with king f2, getting ready to defend it with king e3, maybe then king d2 to oust the rook. It also gives me a chance to play rook g2 check, so king f2.
Well, he's just moved his king back to f2. That's a shame, because I wanted to play my rook over to the g file. Never mind, rook to d1.
He's gone rook d1. Oh, I'm not entirely sure about that. It just could be a template for king e2. The best move here is obviously rook g2 check. I'm going to have to be careful, because obviously I'm setting myself up for f5 because of the pin down the diagonal. But I think if I need to try and win this, then I'll have to do it when he's getting shorter time. So I'm going to have to just simply try and play a bit quicker and try and play actively. Rook g2 check.
He's running into time trouble now. He's just checked me with his rook. I've got to move my king. It's got to go to the open line. So king to h7.
Played king h7, which is fair enough. King h5 was met by bishop e2 check. King h6 to just lose a tempo later on to bishop d2 check. So I've got to do something about the bishop. King e2 was what I intended, so king e2.
He's just moved his king over to attack my rook, so I better move that rook. So rook to queen rook 1. Attack his pawn.
He's played rook a1. I know that seems to pick up a tempo, but man of my king goes to e3 to allow the lateral defence of the pawn on a2, and I think his rook is worse on a1 than it is on d1, although it's a matter of opinion, but I think I'm doing things here. I also have a threat, which is actually quite easy for him to miss, and he is getting short of time here. In fact, he's still writing the moves down, and I've stopped. That's really not good practical chess.
Okay, really short on time. I'm just going to play a sneaky move. I just play f5.
Well, he's played f5. Now this is getting really interesting because finally there's some life in the position, and neither of us have hardly got any time left on the clock. I think he's missed my next move. Bishop f8, threatening rook g7 check. Oh, he doesn't like that. He's thinking a bit too long and hard here. I've now got far more interest in his clock than I have in the position. 3, 2, 1. He's played knight h6, but I'm sorry, your clock's just expired.
Wow, what a game, what a battle. South Bristol Chess Club champion Richard Garrett did not go down without a fight, and it went right to the wire with time trouble playing its part on both players' game. Tyson Mordue then is victorious and wins Group B, and therefore qualifies to play Dr. Ian Bourne in the final of the South Bristol Chess Club Championships. As for Richard Garrett, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but it wasn't quite enough and he has to relinquish his title. But he can be very proud of how he played in this game and the unusual Sicilian variation that he employed, which seemed to work well. As for the other members of the group, well, they weren't really in it, were they? Dan Travis ends the group with 0 points in bottom place, and Jerry Jeps ends with 1 point. But it was these two heavyweights who slugged it out, and Tyson Mordue is the man who goes through to the final. So, that's it for today, but we look forward to bringing you coverage of the final, where Ian Bourne takes on Tyson Mordue. See you again soon. Goodbye.